Approximately 90% of podcasts experience podfade. And if you don't want to fail and you want to stay consistent, this episode is for you.
There's over 1.9 million podcasts. Most of them never see the results they expected. They want to monetize, but their show ends up costing them money, and they never achieve the listenership they desire. This show will help you launch, grow, monetize, and inspire with your podcast. Get ready to take notes, because here's your host, Adam Adams.
Welcome back. As I said before, there is an alarming amount of podcasters that experience something called podfade. They end up struggling to be consistent. There's a number of reasons why they end up failing and why they end up fading. And one of them is just their podcast ends up costing them too much money. Another one is that they don't have really that listenership that they were looking for. Another one is they just feel overwhelmed, like they don't have enough systems or processes, or they're doing too much of the podcast busy work. And I want to dive in. If you don't want to fail, if you don't want to lose your listener base, and you want to be able to push forward with your podcast and never quit, this podcast episode is for you. I'm going to ask you a question. If your show paid for itself, you had a significant listener base, and your show was as easy as just pressing record and knowing that everything else was handled for you, would you quit? The obvious answer is, of course not. You wouldn't quit if your show paid for itself, you had a huge listener base, and it was as easy as pressing record and knowing everything else was handled for you. So how do you solve these four things? The cost of the podcast, if the podcast is costing you money, if it's not sustainable, if you have no listeners or not enough listeners, a poor listenership, and you really want to make an impact on somebody, you can feel overwhelmed by doing too much, not having the right systems, or maybe you started with the wrong path or direction. How do you solve that? Here's 10 tips that you may not have heard before that will help you to be more consistent with your podcast. And by the way, before we jump into those 10 tips, the first 6 episodes of this podcast, the podcast on podcasting, of course, is a podcasting 101 course. It's free. You don't have to sign up for any newsletters or anything like that. It's just the first 6 episodes of the podcast. And additionally, if you haven't checked it out, go and do it. But if you have already checked it out, then do something for me. Either leave an honest rating and review of the show, or just share it with a friend. Share that free course with a friend who can benefit from it. Now let's jump into the 10 things that you can do as a podcaster to make sure that you don't podfade. So number 1 is, no, it's not about you. It's about your listener. Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll have everything in life that you want. So if you are inwardly facing and focused when making your podcast, what am I going to get out of it, etc., you're thinking about it wrong, and it ends up being more challenging to keep your podcast sustainable. So the first one is, it's not about you, it's about the listener. The second thing is understanding that it is a marathon and a sprint. It is a marathon and a sprint. I know you probably never heard that before, and you're like, no, Adam, that's not how the saying goes. The saying goes, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I disagree. With a podcast, you have to be focused on both if you want it to be successful. You have to be thinking about the longevity and staying in it for, 3+ years. You got to be focused on that. And at the same time, you don't want to think of, oh, if I don't have 1 million listeners by tomorrow, I'm going to quit. So it is a marathon, but it's also a sprint. And what I mean by it is a sprint also is that you've got to push really, really hard in the beginning. That really supports you to hit some algorithms for Apple Podcast. It really supports you to get on New and Noteworthy. It really allows you to be able to get in front of the most amount of listeners in the beginning so that you can start and hit the ground running. So it is a marathon and a sprint. That's number 2. Number 3, know the importance of consistency. If you understand the importance of consistency, it'll support you to be able to keep that going for a long time. One of the suggestions that I always have is to record more episodes than you publish. To record more episodes each week than are getting published on your podcast. For example, this week I have 7 podcast episodes. I've got 1 on Tuesday, 5 on Wednesday, and 1 on Thursday. That's going to be 7 episodes that I record. However, I'm publishing 4 episodes a week. What this does for me with the consistency is allows me to never be behind the 8 ball. It is stressful. It is frustrating. It sucks to be behind the 8 ball. To be here on Sunday and be like, shit, I have to have an episode going out on Monday morning. And you're recording an episode at 11:30 at night on Sunday, and then you're trying to scramble to get it all edited and produced and published in time the next day. I never want you to be behind the 8 ball. So the third thing is, with the importance of consistency, is recording more episodes than you need to publish. The fourth thing is you got to understand the compound effect. I read this book, not with my eyes, with my ears. I listen to books because I'm dyslexic. But I read this book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. And he talks about little things that you can do over time where you can make some changes and stay consistent with it, and that it compounds and ramps up at the end. So if you understand this bell curve, this compound effect with your podcast, it'll help you to know, for example, that you need to stay consistent for 3 or more years, that you need to keep going, that you need to publish consistently on time, every single time, record more than you publish. So the fourth thing is understanding the bell curve and the compound effect. The fifth thing is investing in your podcast. If you want to make sure you never quit, you never experience pod fade and fail and start something and get embarrassed because you'd never finished it or followed through, then you want to understand that you should invest in your podcast. What does that mean? Here's 3 ways that you can invest in your podcast. The equipment, making sure that you have good sound quality, a decent mic, and I've got a whole bunch of mics and everything. If you're listening, and you can go to growyourshow.com/PDF. Okay, growyourshow.com/PDF. It has all sorts of equipment that I vetted. Mics that cost $20 all the way up to a microphone that costs $500. So whatever your budget is, you'll be able to get the right piece of equipment for you. I also treat my room with sound treatment, and I got some other cool, you can hear this kind of pop up, and I've got some other little tools. This allows me to make my podcasting a little bit easier on myself because I've invested in the podcast. And if you understand investments, they pay dividends. When you invest in good sound quality and things that make it easier on yourself, it pays dividends. It is an investment, not an expense. The second thing that you can use to invest in your podcast that pays dividends is marketing. So there's paid marketing where you actually invest dollars financially. And additionally, there's organic marketing where you invest time and effort, or your team invests time and effort to get out in front of the right people. That marketing, that growth pays dividends. Going back to Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect, the more that we invest into our podcast with marketing, paid and organic, the more likely that we're going to be able to have all of the listeners we desire, and we're going to be able to monetize our show a lot easier. And the third thing is coaching. To be able to, whether it's coaching with a paid relationship, consulting, or just reaching out to a friend who has a successful podcast. Remember, it should be a successful podcast. And reaching out to them and asking what did they do to have such a successful podcast that's downloaded by lots and lots of people, that's making money. If you can ask that right person that you're connected with, or pay a coach or a mentor, these are the 3 ways that will pay dividends as you invest. So number 5 was invest in your podcast, coaching, mentoring, marketing, and equipment. Making sure you have good sound quality, you're reaching the right audience, etc. The 6th thing that I wanted to share out of the 10 today here is to monetize your podcast early. remember that one of the issues is that your podcast is costing you money. Over time, if you have a team, for example, you will be paying for somebody to edit the podcast, someone to help you get guests, somebody to help you market the podcast. These are all actual expenses. And if you aren't monetizing it, if you're not finding a way to bring in income so that the podcast pays for itself, eventually something's got to give. It reminds me of real estate investing, and I've just got two quick examples. One of the real estate investments is going to Sydney, Australia. The other real estate investment, if I can just use complete polar opposites, is going to Ohio. Okay. In Sydney, Australia, people who are buying these properties and hoping to get rich out of being a landlord, their rentals actually cost them money every single month. They're only thinking about, oh, if it just goes up in value. It probably will, but if they buy enough of these rentals and it's all of them are costing them money, they're more liabilities than they are assets, which basically means they can only handle a couple of these without going bankrupt. And eventually, if they never make money, they will go bankrupt. Same thing happens with your podcast. You have the option of either buying in Sydney, Australia, where you are pouring money into the property or your podcast and hoping to get a return later on, but it's wishy-washy and uncertain. Or you can go and invest in Ohio, where the prices are pretty dang low and the rents are pretty dang medium, and it allows you to be able to cash flow from day one. When doing it that way, you're able to purchase so many different properties because each and every one of them gives you positive ROI. So you have no limit. In fact, the more you buy, the better. Same thing with your podcast. I want you to monetize early. I want you to get cash flow from your podcast as soon as possible so that it is an asset for you and not a liability. Number 7 is never get overwhelmed. If you never get overwhelmed, it'll solve your problem. So what can you do to not get overwhelmed? A, better processes. B, you can have better systems and processes. And C, you can have a team. So now if you're not wearing all of the hats and you don't have to be there editing each and every single one of your podcasts, you don't have to be the one finding your guests. If you have a good team, then you will never feel overwhelmed because you get to do all the fun stuff. You get to be the one recording the episode, pouring into people or interviewing the right person that's going to be able to support what you're trying to achieve and give value to your listener. You can focus on the stuff that you want to do while allowing a team to do the rest. So that was number 7. Don't get overwhelmed by utilizing those 3 things. Number 8 out of 10 is having an accountability partner. So with an accountability partner, it could be a friend. It could be one of your listeners. In fact, I've had accountability partners that were listeners in the past as well. With my podcast called Creative Real Estate Podcast, I ended up selling that podcast last year in 2020. As I was recording that podcast, I remember that there was a time that I got overwhelmed. There was a time that I didn't publish episodes for a couple of weeks. And a couple of listeners reached out to me. I got a couple of Facebook messages. I got 2 or 3 text messages, and a couple people called me. And they were wondering, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I haven't seen an episode come out in a while. That got my butt in gear by having somebody say, hey, get with the program, Adam. I listen. So you can have a friend be your accountability partner. Your listener could be an accountability partner. Your coach or your mentor could be an accountability partner, or your team. Right now, and literally today, Jen from this team said, hey, Adam, I need you to record this episode because it's coming out soon and we need to edit it and get it ready beforehand. And so she says, you are supposed to have this done by today. I just wanted to remind you that it needs to get done. And it kicked me and got my butt in gear. Thank you, Jen. So it could be someone from your team. It could be your editor, etc. But if you have an accountability partner, you're less likely to experience pod fade. Number 9 is if you don't go down the wrong path. For example, some of us, we start a podcast, we don't begin with the end in mind, like Stephen Covey says in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So we fail at that. Instead of beginning with the end in mind, we begin with no end in mind, and we start a podcast just for the sake of everybody else has told us, ready, fire, aim. Don't overthink it. Just start. And so you listen to that crap and you start a podcast and you ended up failing because you didn't begin with the end in mind. So with number 9 is if you can find a way to start with the right direction, going down the correct path that's going to benefit your listener and your business, then you're more likely to keep and continue to do this time and time again over time without quitting, being embarrassed, and failing on a podcast and going and trying to tell everybody, hey, podcasts don't work. I failed. I had 6 episodes and I never got enough listeners and blah, 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 blah. You need to start with the end in mind so that every single effort that you put into your podcast pays dividends. Number 10 is getting your guest to share the episode. In a few minutes, I want to share with you how to do that as well. So a few of you are probably ready to start your podcast or maybe take your podcast to the next level. And if that is you, I want to finish by letting you know that my team, we can help you. There's a few things we can do. And one of them is helping you get your guests to share the episode. So number 1, we can get you down the right path from the beginning so that you don't have to scrap the whole show a little bit later, beginning with the end in mind. Number 2 is we can help you with the branding, the promotional images, the audiograms, the quote cards, so that your guest will share the episode with their listeners and you can hack into their people. So audiograms, videograms, quote cards, promo images of the podcast that they're excited that they can share it with other people. That's what you got to do. So we can help you with that as well. We can design a custom launch plan. We can consult with you and design a custom launch plan that begins with the end in mind. We will help you by making sure you have the right equipment so that fits your budget. We can help you with the accountability. Hey, you need to get some episodes going. We're running out of episodes. We can help you with that. Help you monetize. Because there's people in our network that reach out because they know that we're managing 40 plus clients, 40 plus different podcasters. And they say, hey, I need to get my message out. Can you reach out to your people? So we can help you monetize that way and also get you a sponsorship template. I just helped Christy 2 days ago create a sponsorship package that she can give to her sponsors. And she's about to make, I think, $5,000 to $6,000 a month with her podcast. So it's pretty freaking awesome. Additionally, we can do all the paid marketing for you. So it's kind of on autopilot and we can get in front of your avatar. All of the back office work that you will need to do. So all you do is press record. We handle the rest, allow you to not be overwhelmed. And finally, ongoing coaching and support throughout the podcast. When you have a question, Tate and I have a call in 2 days. He's a client and a friend, and he needs to figure out what he can do to grow the podcast. So we're doing a little call. So these are the ways that growyourshow.com can help you start, launch, and grow a podcast so that you can inspire the right people and never fail at a podcast, never have that pod fade. This is your host, Adam A. Adams. Until next time, I really want to see you launch your podcast, grow your influence, and grow your income. And I'm out. You're not alone if you're ready to either get your very first affordable microphone or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to some legit podcasting studio equipment. Because on all of the forums over the last few months, I'm seeing this all the time. Even my own personal clients that work with my team, they're ready to get that next microphone. They're asking us for it. Additionally, when I'm on discovery calls with potential clients, they're always asking for this stuff. Hey, what mic do you recommend? Hey, what lighting do you recommend? What webcam should I be using? So many questions. And so what we did, my whole team has put together a PDF so that If you're one of those people who is looking to either get your very first affordable microphone, or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to more professional podcast studio equipment, whether it's soundproofing or whatever, we've got you covered by going to growyourshow.com/PDF. And you can download the PDF for free, or right there on the webpage is everything that you would have, and you don't need to download the PDF. Either way, just go to growyourshow.com/PDF, which will put you to the podcasting equipment that me and my team have personally vetted. I'll see you on the next episode.